In 1993, Ayrton Senna said something to Ron Dennis during a contract negotiation that works perfectly to open this video. No money, no racing. No money, no race. And here, we've already talked about cars, projects, small and big stories, circuits, rules. We've told the story of entire categories, but until now, we've never talked about who actually pays for all this fun. And throughout history, from Emerson Fittipaldi's first championship with Lotus in 1970 all the way to today with Gabriel Bortoleto, Brazilian companies have helped fund our drivers' laps around the world. And that's what we're going to talk about today on Splash and Go, the national companies that have backed Brazilians in Formula One. Let's go! Motorsport began to lose its aura of romanticism way back in the 1950s. Fangio, in a segment of a documentary, talks about this part. He went out on the track to test a Maserati car and they had changed the shock absorbers and he said, "Why did you change them? The others were working just fine." And then the team boss replied, "Because these ones pay." Even back then, a Formula One team was being sponsored, in this case with free parts supplied, so that the supplier could then say in the market, "I'm the one who makes the springs, shock absorbers, brakes, tires, and so on." Because we know that the aura of technical perfection, performance, and so on in motorsport helps boost product sales. And Brazil's debut in Formula One, as well as the entry of Brazilian companies onto the grid, came precisely through a pioneering team that invented many technical aspects of the cars and also implemented a sponsorship model that we still see today, changing the color of the cars to suit the sponsors' preferences. When Emerson appeared in Formula One, he displayed the Café do Brasil logo, as did José Carlos Pazzi, who also carried the logos of Brahma, the brewery, and Banco Português do Brasil. There are photos and videos of Moco drinking a bottle of Guaraná Brahma at Interlagos, if I'm not mistaken. And that would be just the beginning, because soon after, as we know, a Brazilian Formula One team would emerge whose name featured the name sponsor model, Copersucar. Copersucar is a cooperative of ethanol and sugar producers, which at that time decided to help fund the Fittipaldi Brothers project, lending its name to the team, which became Copersucar Fittipaldi. And you thought that these Formula One team names nowadays, Haas MoneyGram, Aston Martin Aramco, and so on, were a modern thing. Copersucar stayed with the Fittipaldi brothers in the early years, and later they changed their visual identity to the Skol Brewery, keeping the car's yellow color, slightly changing the shade, and let's admit it, it looked really nice. With it, in fact, Emerson Fittipaldi made his last podium appearance in Formula One, and the team would end its participation in Formula One in 1982, scoring points with Chico Serra and running only one car, under sponsorship from the bicycle manufacturer Caloi and Sal Cisne Salt. As we know, Emerson's transition to Piquet in Formula One even seemed like a passing of the torch, because Emerson's last podium was actually Nelson's first victory in Long Beach. But before we talk about Nelson's sponsors, in 1978, a Brazilian airline, Varig, helped fund the Arrows team. In a clever partnership with the team, they offered free transportation of cargo and team personnel around the world, not only with their own flights and aircraft, but also through so-called code share agreements with partner companies, in exchange, of course, for putting stickers on the car. There's even a photo of this, with Ricardo Patrese at the wheel, if I'm not mistaken. Piquet entered Formula One with sponsorship from Brazilian companies, for example, Brastemp, a home appliance manufacturer, and he also brought, already during his time at Benetton, sponsorship from Ryder, a flip-flop brand that belongs, or belonged to the Grandane Group, on his helmet. I even remember a TV commercial. If we find it, we'll put it here for you, featuring Piquet with his flip-flops. But of course, the 80s would bring perhaps the most iconic of Brazilian sponsors, together with Ayrton Senna, the now defunct Banco Nacional. The bank was Ayrton Senna's personal sponsor, which is why its logo appeared on his racing suit and helmet. It supported the start of his career, and even when other financial institutions approached the Brazilian and his manager, Armando Botelho, offering even more money, Senna and his management remained loyal to Banco Nacional until the end. In 1994, he was still with the same bank. During this transition period, 93, 94, 95, Rubens Barrichello also emerged, coming up from the junior categories with sponsorship from the condiment manufacturer Arisco in an innovative arrangement. Rubens' father, approached the owner of Arisco and offered half of everything Rubens would earn throughout his Formula One career if Arisco would help fund his climb to the top. Was it a risky deal? A calculated risk, of course, because Rubens might not have become anything. He might not have made much money, so it might not have been worth the investment. But the Arisco businessman liked the bet, got on board, and as it turned out, it was a success. Rubens would stay in Formula One from 1993 to 2011, and the deal was that half of what Rubens earned would be passed on to his patron. Arisco, by the way, was also with Nelson Piquet in his final years. Then in 1995, a Formula 3000 team moves up to Formula One, with two Brazilians at the wheel. Forte Corse, which had Roberto Pupo Moreno as the experienced driver and Pedro Paulo Diniz, the young up-and-comer. Diniz, son of billionaire Abilio Diniz, the man who built Pão de Açúcar into what it is, naturally brought his business partners onto the car, which became a true showcase of Brazilian companies. And when they weren't Brazilian, they were major partners of the supermarket chain, like Parmalat. There you could see Unibanco Bank, Kaiser Brewery, Sadia, and even Tarantella tomato paste. A few years later, specifically starting in 1996, Ricardo Rossetti arrived, who also brought support from Brazilian companies like Banco Safra. At the end of the 1990s, starting in 1999, Williams began, even without a Brazilian driver as a main driver, to display the branding of the petroleum giant Petrobras. From 1998 to 2008, and then from 2014 to 2016, Petrobras was the official fuel supplier for Williams, which meant that even during the refueling era, the person responsible for attaching the fuel hose was dressed accordingly, wearing outfits in the sponsor's colors. Petrobras would later make a brief return on McLaren's cars. When Felipe Massa arrived in Formula One, he showed up with support from Club Social, the brand that made those cream cracker biscuits, remember? And when another Felipe Nasser, was a reserve driver at Williams and a main driver at Sauber, 2014 as a reserve, 2015 and 2016 as a main driver, he raced with support from Banco do Brasil. At Sauber, in fact, the sponsorship was quite visible on the side pods and the rear wing. Banco do Brasil, which had already made a brief appearance on the Braun GP cars in 2009, became immortalized alongside Itaipava Brewery, with a configuration, paint scheme, and layout that won the championship with Jenson Button here in Sao Paulo. Later on, when Brazil made a brief appearance with Pietro Fittipaldi for 2 Grand Prix in 2020, when he replaced the injured Romain Grosjean, Oakberry sponsorship started to appear on the Haas cars. Oakberry has hundreds, maybe thousands of acai outlets all over Brazil, and as far as I know, also abroad. One of the shareholders, I'm not sure if he still is, but apparently he was, is Felipe Massa, by the way. When Felipe Drugovich arrives in Formula One to be a reserve driver at Aston Martin, he brings with him the support of Porto Insurance and XP Investment Brokerage. Porto would later extend its support to Gabriel Bortoleto, who this year joins Sauber with backing from the payment services company PicPay, which not only sponsors him but also displays its logo on the nose of the Sauber cars. Bortoleto and other Brazilian drivers also have support from BRB Bank, which sponsors the Alpine car. Right there, on the nose. As you can see, Brazil's history in Formula One is long, has involved many drivers, and has always needed, and still needs, the backing of companies that think it might be advantageous for me to display my brand on these billboards going 300 kilometers per hour. From Café do Brasil, back at the beginning, Brahma with Carlos Passi, Brastemp, Caloi, Salcisne, Banco Nacional, Kaiser, Tarantella, Unibanco, Clube Social, Banco do Brasil, Petrobras, XP, Porto, BRB, and PicPay. All of them Brazilian brands. And I haven't even started talking about the foreign companies that have sponsored Brazilians. There are many. Some of these brands don't even exist anymore. Unibanco was absorbed by Itaú. Banco Nacional is also no longer around. Others, and it's only natural that this happens, have completely changed their strategy and no longer see Formula One as part of their action plans. But in any case, I thought it was worth putting together this overview, which tells a lot about Brazil's history in Formula One, and brings interesting photos from times when Brazilian companies had a very strong presence. For example, we had a car from the Fittipaldi team, first as 𝘾𝙤𝙥𝙥𝙥𝙦, beautifully featuring that stylized hummingbird, and later as 𝘾𝙤𝙥𝙥𝙦, the Arisco Petrobras, the yellow of Banco do Brasil with Nasser. And of course, before wrapping up, I have to ask, did I forget any? I tried to make this overview as comprehensive as possible, but sometimes something gets left out. The criterion was, of course, to include in the list anyone who had appeared at least on the car or on the driver's helmet and suit, leaving out some advertising campaigns they may have done outside of Formula One, even if they used their image as drivers. But the comment section is yours to add anything I missed. If we gather enough suggestions, there could be a part 2, alright? So that was another episode of Splash and Go on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, it's free, costs nothing, and it really helps the channel a lot. Do me this favor, do us this favor, because I always say here, likes are the fuel of the channel and comments really help with content distribution. Every time you comment, you show YouTube that you're engaged with what we're talking about here. And that's why I only ask for comments and likes at the end, so you can show YouTube that you watched until the very end. Don't worry, our retention rate is really high because you must like what we do here, but the algorithm doesn't know that, so let it know. Tell us where you're watching from, just leave a little emoji if you want, or list the brands I left out for part 2. Feel free, write whatever you want. Some people just write comment, and that's fine too. So you don't miss out on anything we do here, we have notification channels, Telegram, WhatsApp, and Instagram that automatically notify you on your phone about every piece of content we make. And you can also keep an eye on our social media. We're showing the handles here, and the link is down below in the description. Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok, where there's content all the time. Alright? That's it. Thanks, and a big hug.